This is going to be a review of two steering wheels, actually. So this is a Grant. I believe this one's a 697 with the yellow stripe, and this one is a God Snow, basically eBay special steering wheel. And what I really wanted to review was this Grant steering wheel, and I purchased this. This is something new that they've released, and there's not a lot of reviews out there for it, so I wanted to get a review on it. Really wanted to compare it to the eBay wheels, which, if you've seen some of the videos online of people bending their eBay wheel, you know, that's basically been the concern, that the eBay wheels coming out of China are really low quality metals, and they're going to bend on you, which what I'm using this for is in my rallycross car, and obviously having a steering wheel bend and fail on you mid-race is not going to be a good thing. Received the wheel, and instantly, even before I received the wheel, I'd already started looking online and noticed that the stitch pattern that's on here, and even the look and everything, looked identical to what the eBay wheels were doing. And I was curious if Grant was basically cashing in on those same eBay wheel suppliers, changing the bolt pattern to their 5-bolt pattern, and like I said, just cashing in, except for this wheel is $90. This wheel, which actually came with all its adapter stuff, was $53, but you can get these things for like $30. So I'll start off with the eBay wheel, which my main gripes with this guy, you can see right there, if I can get it in focus, a bunch of plastic coming in from underneath the, it's not leather, this is like a vinyl, the fake leather, and you can also really quickly off right from the start see some scratches, and just the finish in general. I just don't like this black finish when you compare it to the Grant wheel, which I think is a much better finish on the actual metal. The leather itself, I'm not a big fan of this old vinyl, and this is going to be something you're going to find in some of these, you know, early 90s, late 80s cars. It's not a huge deficit on this wheel, but definitely the suede is nicer on this steering wheel. The actual stitches, I was really impressed for the amount of money that you're paying on this eBay wheel, that the stitches were really good. You can see that where the two halves of the steering wheel covered, I mean, it's all very well done. So no complaints really on that. I've never mounted the steering wheel up, and that's because of this adapter. The second I looked at this adapter, I knew that this kit was not something that I wanted to put on my car. This plastic ring here, super cheesy. I'm sure it gets the job done. What that does is, in my Toyota, you'll have a little prong that sits against this, and that's your positive connection, which runs through this wire, and then the mount itself and the steering column is grounded, so that's how you can do your horn. But just the aluminum that they used on this thing felt really cheap. The color on it is really light, and it just looks like a really light duty cast aluminum piece, and even these the actual, terminology is escaping me, the knurling inside, the splines, there we go. The splines, they look good on video here. In person they look like they were almost cast in, which would probably be pretty difficult, but just not a lot of faith in that part. So you get the adapter, you also get this little cover, guy on here, which slides over and will cover it when it's installed in the vehicle. These pieces are actually usually together, and that's your horn button. So that would sit on here, and this plate helps ground the steering wheel. So you'd sit that on there, and you'd sit your center ring over top of that, and that's the end look you'd have. You'd have button head screws in each of these 6 holes. The reason I've got this pulled apart is I wanted to show you that this roughly fits in the steering wheel. It pops through sometimes, so it's on the edge of sitting in that hole. So like right now it sits in there nicely, and then it pops through. So this hole measures 2 inches and a 1/16 of an inch, so 2.06 inches. And when I measured it on the Grant wheel, I got the same measurement, but this thing falls through. It doesn't even have a chance of staying on. So when I talk about gripes on this wheel, it's this black finish, kind of the unfinished look there. I also just don't like the way it looks, and I'll go over that in a second. But I want to talk about a gripe on the Grant steering wheel. At $90, they don't include a horn button. So the adapters all have the horn wiring, but this does not have the horn button. And then I thought, well, could I just order one of the eBay horn buttons? And I'm having my doubts if any of those ones are going to fit on this. I think that's the route I'm going to go, and I'll just have to epoxy it in or do something to that effect. But yeah, pretty lame that Grant can't include that horn. I still think that they're pilfering this wheel off of a lower cost Chinese supplier, and all they've asked is for them to change out the bolt pattern. So I think they're still making pretty good money on this wheel. They might have some other things, like they might require a certain hardness to the metal that is guaranteed with their wheels, versus like the eBay stuff. You don't know what metal you're going to get. Overall on this Grant wheel, like I said, I really like the black finish. When I received it, no scratches of any kind. The stitching is basically the same stitch pattern you saw on the other wheel. You can see right there that you can see where the fabric is coming over. Actually, that's a better view. So you can see the 2 halves of the fabric wrapping. And the other thing that sometimes annoys my fingers is some of this loose stitching here. You can feel that. Otherwise, it's a good wheel. I noticed there's a lack of padding right where the stripe is, so you can kind of indent right there and there. I don't know why, but every now and then I feel that when I'm using the wheel. Both steering wheels are not the flattest when you bolt them up to the adapter. They have a little bit of rock, and that's a fault on both of the wheels. When I talk about why I like the look of the Grant wheel better, it's easier if I just put them one on top of the other. And what you'll see is the spokes are just slightly different. And the easiest way to see this is this curve that goes into the steering wheel here. It's a really smooth transition. And when you go into this one, you can see that the spokes are coming in basically to the center line of the steering wheel, and you've got a much more pronounced curvature here. From what I understand, this is like I think a Sparco. Sparco does this style, and Momo does this style. So this is like kind of a Momo ripoff wheel in terms of that. The other thing that's probably going to be really hard to tell on video is just the way that it's dished. I feel like this one looks smoother in hand. This reminds me of the old arcade machines where you did the Ivan Stewart like truck racing. the way that it goes into center like that so aggressively, to me actually looks cheap. Like I said, as opposed to this where the connections to the wheel are already angled in, and so the dish is actually softer. Same amount of dish between the two wheels. They're both 350mm wheels, and that's one fault of these guys, is Grant has not yet offered a smaller steering wheel. I'm looking at my time, it's already 10 minutes into this thing, so the next things I wanted to show is just, I'm going to mount this thing up and just show that it doesn't bend. So I'm going to cut the video out. Okay, so this is the wheel installed now, back in the car. I should point out, so I went with a 4-inch spacer, which actually gets rid of the spacer that's included with the wheel. Maybe a good point to point that out. It's a 5-bolt wheel, and you'll notice almost all the Grant adapters are this 3-bolt that's here in the background. They include, it's about a 1-inch thick aluminum adapter that takes you from the 3 bolts to the 5 bolts, and that comes with the steering wheel along with that fake horn button. So yeah, you know, I went with this wheel for one reason, to move the steering position back. With the 4-inch wheel, you can see there's a ton of room. I really had to stretch. Really, I let go of the steering wheel in order to use the turn signal. But in terms of the seating position, it's really helped. So I think when I do this, you're going to see a lot of movement, and the thing about that is it's mostly in the steering column. So if I grab this, so you can see really no movement or any bending from the wheel itself. It's really all movement in the steering column itself. So this wheel, nice and stout. Looking at the actual spokes, the eBay wheel is about the same thickness, probably a little bit thicker, and in the hand it feels really sturdy. I've tried bending it, again not having it mounted up, and I did not get any bending. So if you're in it for just super cheap, then go ahead and get the eBay wheel. Good luck with the adapter not tearing out. Looks super sketchy. The Grant adapter, which is way underneath there, and I really don't want to disassemble to get to and show for this video, but the metals that they used felt way better. The actual the copper trace to get your horn wire, it's an actual piece of copper that they then have a few solder joints around the base to attach it to the adapter. And I don't know if the splines are an actual steel insert or not, but you know, the whole part was just heavier, felt more robust, something that I'll much more comfortable trusting my car to. This Grant wheel, overall cost to get this thing set up, I think it was about $90 for the steering wheel. The 4-inch spacer was $30 from a third-party vendor. You can find them on eBay and on Amazon. And then the adapter, I think, was $17. So you're talking about $130 to get the wheel set up in your car. And I guess if you were to do a horn button, you can get those for about $10 to $15 on eBay as well. So probably about the same cost as an Energy setup, maybe a little bit cheaper. Definitely cheaper than a Momo or OMP or Sparco. And I'm super stoked on the quality. So that's my review of this. Like I said, I don't think you can go wrong on those eBay wheels. In terms of the wheel itself, if you can find a better or more high quality adapter, I think those eBay wheels have finally come around, probably because they saw all the bad press that they're getting. You know, if you're a detail freak, one other thing I'll point out is just that you can see the tooling marks on here. This thing's really having a hard time focusing here. So maybe I'll zoom in. So you saw it there for a split second that the you can see the punch marks coming through all these holes. So they didn't really bother to clean those up at all. And that was actually going to be one of the things I was going to use to try and see if it was identical to the eBay wheel or not. I think there's other wheels out there that have this spoke style and everything that could actually be the duplicate for this wheel. I just don't want to bother spending the money because ultimately I'm happy with the setup that I have. There you go.